So you want to be a firefighter, you just don't know where to start. Or maybe you've begun to apply to a few places and now you're not sure what the next best step would be. Well, in this video, I want to talk about how to become a firefighter, the steps you need to take to be a firefighter, and the easiest way to get from where you are to where you want to be. Now, I know there's some other videos out there on YouTube that are a little misleading about how to be a firefighter today and quick, easy steps. It's not going to be quick and it's not going to be easy. This is a long, slow process generally, especially for most people that don't really have any experience or don't know anybody in the fire service. But what I want to do in this video is I want to kind of break it down into three different sections. I have a whole bunch of notes here, so I want to make sure I cover everything. The first section is going to be about basic general criteria to become a firefighter. Just things that pretty much every department nationwide will require you to have or be in order to get hired on at that department. The second section is going to be about if you and I were sitting at lunch right now, and you said, hey, Mike, I want to become a firefighter, but I don't know where to start. These would be the actions I would recommend to you or any other friend of how to start from where you are today to get a career in the fire service. And then the last one is just going to be the different steps that most most full-time career departments will require you to complete, some in different orders, some a little bit more, some a little bit less, in order to become a firefighter at a career department. Now, over the course of this video, you'll see some other videos come in up here, and those are called, YouTube calls those cards. I have so many videos on this channel that address a lot of the individual the little things that I'll talk about in this video. It's going to be too much for me to put in the cards. So what I'm going to say is that if you hear something that you have a question about or you're not sure about, look in the description below this video. Each section, I'll have section 1, section 2, and section 3. I'll have all the videos on this channel that pertain to things that I talk about in there listed out. So if you want more details, for example, I'll talk about a polygraph test. If you want more details on what to expect on a polygraph test, I'll put that down in there. Check out those videos, watch those videos. There's so much content on this channel that will help you through it. But if there's something that I don't talk about that you do have a question about, feel free to leave it in the comments below. And speaking of that, if you find this video useful and helpful, give it a thumbs up, give it a like. You guys have been really responsive and I appreciate that. And yeah, let's jump right into it. So the first thing I would say to become a firefighter, the first is going to be the basic general criteria. And the first thing you're going to need to do is you're going to have to be 18 or older. Makes sense. You have to be an adult to be a firefighter. So what I would recommend to any high schoolers or people that are under the age of 18 is look into a junior firefighter program. There's also things out there at vocational schools where they'll have you go to a fire academy or get your EMT certificate ahead of time while you're in high school so that when you finish high school, you can just get rolling. If you're in high school and you know that's what you want to do, start working on that now. But generally, you're going to have to be 18 or older. A lot of career departments will also require you to be 21 or older. But if you're 18 and you have a firefighter certificate or a firefighter card or an EMT card, get on a volunteer department tomorrow. Get on a part-time department as soon as you can. Start gaining that experience now, even if the full-time departments in your area won't hire you till you're 21. I promise you it will help you down the road. Next, you need a high school diploma or a GED. Now, firefighting is one of the few careers out there, it seems like, that are left where you don't need a college degree. But if you do want to get a college degree, I actually have a video about that. You can check that out down below. You don't need one. Fire science is nice. All these other things are nice, but you don't need it. So if you, for some reason, dropped out of high school and you don't have your high school diploma, go get your GED. Whatever you do, you need that diploma. Number 3, you need a clean criminal record. Now, I talk about this in one of my other videos as well, which you can find down below, about how to get around some questionable things in your past. Maybe you were fired, maybe you had a drug charge or something like that. Generally speaking, fire departments, career fire departments won't hire people with felony backgrounds. They will. I've heard of them hiring people with misdemeanors or DUIs and speeding tickets, things like that. But you're going to get asked about that in your interview and you're going to want to address that properly. So what I would recommend to you, though, is don't get into any trouble. Don't drive like an idiot. Don't hang out with idiots. Don't drink and drive. Stop messing around with drugs. If you know that you want to get into the fire service, stop doing those things now. The other thing that I would recommend to you is that if you have social media and you use Facebook or you use any of the others, get rid of it. And I say that because anything that you've said or done will be found out. And a lot of people say and do stupid things on social media and post stupid things on social media, and you don't want that to come back to bite you later on. Now, if you're one of those people that has social media and you just never go on it, well, then I guess it doesn't really matter. But generally speaking, a lot of people do and say a lot of dumb things on social media. So if that's you, get rid of it. You're going to be required to pass a medical examination. You may be required to pass a psychological evaluation, and you may be required to take a polygraph exam. Now, the medical evaluation isn't that big of a deal. They're probably going to do a drug test. They're probably going to do a stress test where you walk on a treadmill and they test your heart and make sure there's no other issues. You know, just a general physical, draw some labs, make sure everything's okay, make sure that you're going to be up to the stressors of the job. The psychological evaluation, there's a few different ones floating around out there. The ones that I took generally, they give you hundreds of multiple choice questions. The ones that they'll give you a sentence and they say like strongly disagree, neutral, agree, strongly agree, and you have to pick one, and then they make you sit down with a psychologist afterward who asks you a whole bunch of questions. Some departments do this, some departments do not. What they do with that information and from that psychologist after they write up a little report on you is they report back to the chief or the department, whoever they need to talk to, and they kind of give them their feel for you, how you would handle the job psychologically. Polygraph, for those that aren't familiar with polygraphs, is essentially a lie detector test. A lot of departments do this. I had to do this. A lot of departments don't do this, so it just depends. There's two forms of a polygraph. There's the traditional polygraph, but then there's another thing, and the purists out there will say it's not a polygraph. It's a CVSA, computer voice stress analysis. They hook a little microphone up. Somebody will ask you questions, and you answer the questions, and it supposedly measures the stress in your voice and tells whether you're not lying or not. They use it as a tool to weed people out. If there's something in your record, they'll give you a polygraph, and if they don't like you, they'll say, well, it seems like you lied on your polygraph, so they use it as a tool. So, but you may come across it. There is a video down below about that and what to expect going forward. You will need a valid driver's license. This is why I say don't do stupid things. Don't get so many speeding tickets that you lose your license. Don't get a bunch of DUIs so that you lose your license. Inevitably, if you're a firefighter, you're going to have to drive vehicles, and you don't need a CDL, by the way. So make sure you have a valid driver's license. You will possibly need an EMT or a fire card. For example, where I work, everybody before you even show up and sit down for the test is required to be a paramedic and have a firefighter 2 card just to show up to test. If you don't even have those, don't even bother. They won't let you sit for the test. They won't let you apply. However, some departments, especially the bigger departments, won't require you to have really anything except for be 18 and a high school diploma, and they will send you to the fire academy or to any sort of EMS training that they want you to go to. Just depends on where you apply, but just know that some places will require you to have that ahead of time. And then finally, you're going to be required to pass a written test and physical tests. Now, the written tests are things like civil service exams, basic firefighter exams. On this channel, I have hours of content of me literally teaching on a whiteboard how to do math problems, how to do vocabulary, how to do mechanical advantage type of questions, mechanical reasoning. Those are all types of questions that you'll see on civil service exams and firefighter exams. So go find that on this channel and watch those if you have one coming up. Now for the fitness tests, the CPAT, for those of you that have heard of that, or they all have different names for them. It's generally the set criteria that's functional job sort of activities. Like they'll make you do things like run up and down stairs with a hose pack. They'll make you wear a pack. They'll make you do some sort of forcible entry drill. There will be, at the time of making this videos, these other videos haven't been out yet, but when I am working on videos for how to prepare for the CPAT and the best exercises you can do, and literally you can work out alongside and just do those exercises as well. But just know that those are coming as well, and you'll be able to find those down below. So if you have any questions specific to your state, because every state is going to be a little bit different, and then within every state, every department will be a little bit different. My department has some different requirements than departments that are 20, 30 minutes away. So check with the individual department. And if you're still not sure on a kind of a macro level, call your state fire marshal. Every state has a state fire marshal. They're kind of the ultimate authority on all this kind of stuff. They'll be able to tell you exactly where you need to go, what kind of training you need, and what the requirements are. Also, depending on wherever you are, and sorry Canadians, I don't have one for Canada, but if you go on firefighternow.com, I have each state, the requirements to be a firefighter in each state has its own blog post. So I live in Ohio, if you live in New York, California, or Texas, or Oregon, or Montana, wherever it is that you live, just go on firefighternow.com and go in the little search button and type in how to become a firefighter in wherever. You'll find all the general criteria and things that you need to know, some different departments, the biggest departments, just some basic criteria about firefighting in your state. So if you have any questions about that, visit firefighternow.com and look that up. Okay, so number 2, if you and I are sitting down at lunch and you were to say, hey Mike, I don't know where to start, or I've started doing things, I've applied to a couple places, but I'm not sure what to do next, what advice would I give you? So here's the advice I'd give anybody. Number 1, if you're not sure what to do, go on Google and look up every single volunteer and part-time department and full-time department in your area. There may only be a couple, there may be 30. It obviously just depends on where you live. Once you have that list, go to every single one of those departments and sit down with them, or talk to, a lot of times there'll be a secretary there, or if there's one of the firefighters there, literally walk in. Hi, I'm Mike. I'm interested in becoming a firefighter. I'm not sure where to start. I just wanted to find out what the hiring process is here. Firefighters are like anybody else. Generally, they're very approachable. You might get some jerks. You might get some really nice people. But just go to every department in your area and find out what their requirements are. Now, what I would recommend to you is if you have no fire experience, I would apply to a part-time or volunteer department. Now, volunteer departments have a lot of turnover. They have a really hard time holding on to firefighters. So that's a great place for people with no experience to start. It gets you experience, but more importantly, it gets you around other firefighters. If you want to become a firefighter, start spending time with firefighters. Makes sense, right? So go join your local volunteer department, go join your local part-time department. The other thing I would recommend too is if you have a full-time department near you or wherever that is, go take their test, go apply. Now, like I said, for example, where I work, you have to be a paramedic and a firefighter just to show up for the test to apply. Some departments will require that, some don't care at all. Some don't require anything, just show up and take the test. Start taking those tests. Get used to taking those civil service exams. And I would even recommend to you that if you know that this is what you want to do and you know you're going to have to take civil service exams, start taking the police tests too. Even if you don't want to be a cop, that's totally fine. A lot of these tests are very similar. A lot of them are based on general knowledge. A lot of them have similar types of questions. Start taking the cop tests too. Get used to it. Get used to taking the test. Get used to the types of questions and the way they're asking the different questions, and just get as much practice in as you can. Next, get physically fit. If you are not fit, I promise you, you are going to have a miserable time in the fire academy. Now, I talk a lot about what to expect in the fire academy. I'll put that video down below as well. But you have to be fit. If you are morbidly obese or just horribly out of shape, if you make it through the fire academy, you are really going to struggle, and you are going to do nothing but do yourself a disservice. And by the way, do the rest of your crew a disservice if you can't keep up. So don't be that person. Get in shape. Like I said, there's going to be plenty of content on this channel as well about how to get fit, about fitness for firefighters to pass the CPAT, and more. So check those things out. And then finally, if you've done all those things and you're in the process of doing that and you're not sure what would be another good step that you could do to kind of stand out a little bit more, go get your EMT or your paramedic certificate. I would highly recommend that you get a medic card. Now, I recommend this for a few reasons. Number one, if you can't get fire experience on a volunteer or part-time department, the next best thing is to get EMS-related experience. That's important because when you get EMS-related experience, you are going to be spending time with a lot of firefighters. Now, I get it. If you want to get into fire, EMS might not be your thing, but it's going to give you valuable experience and it's going to put you around those people. It also gives you a built-in B job, and I talk about B jobs. I'll put that in the description below if you're interested in looking into things like that. So I would highly recommend you get your EMT and medic card. You will stand out more than somebody else that does not have those things. Finally, section 3. Steps of a full-time hiring process. Now, like I said, every department is going to be a little bit different, but they're generally all going to have these similar steps or something that you're going to have to do. And number one is the application. You will have to do a written application. It's probably a $25 or $50 fee. You just show up, you fill out all the paperwork. It's usually a big, thick packet. With that application, sometimes is a background questionnaire where they'll ask you about your criminal history, speeding tickets, things like that. And just give them like write them a check or a money order. Like I said, everywhere is a little bit different, but you're generally going to have to apply. It's going to be very step number one. That will be posted. At least in Ohio, it's required to be publicly posted. So in the newspapers, they have them. But you can go, there's a bunch of different sites that have job openings for different fire departments. It's public knowledge. So go find the fire departments in your area that are hiring and go make sure you get that application before the application deadline. You're going to have to take a written test. I already talked about this a little bit before. Civil service exams, written tests. Go on this channel. You'll find all sorts of stuff on how to pass the test, different things that you can do. CPAT and fitness test, you're going to have to take the CPAT or some sort of equivalent. Now, some departments have their own particular version. The first department I got hired at had their own. They didn't want anybody else's CPAT. They did their own fitness and agility test, and you had to take that when you applied. Like I said, every department's a little bit different, but you will have to take one inevitably. Panel interview. Well, I've never heard of a full-time department that did not require a panel interview. A lot of the content on this channel is about the panel interview, and I cannot stress to you enough how important the panel interview is. It's their first impression of you. There is a ton of content on this channel dedicated to the interview. Namely, and I'll even put it right here, just a quick, it's a little over an hour primer of the complete guide to the firefighter interview. Watch that. You will have to go through an interview. It's a very stressful event. Everybody has to do it though. So there's that. The chief's interview, some places do it, some places don't. There's also a video about that down below. It's essentially, usually it's after the panel interview, and you sit down with just the chief, or maybe a chief and a captain, or maybe a chief and the mayor, or something like that. And it's just a little bit more of a lower key, a little more personal of an interview. They ask you a little bit more about yourself. They just want to get to know you a little bit better. Polygraph psych evaluation, I kind of touched on that before. Not all departments require that. Where I work, both of them were required, so I've taken all of them. A lot of departments do require that. Just again, there's information in the description below, so make sure you check that out as well. Medical and stress test, talked about that as well. It's a basic physical. You just show up, get your blood drawn, go from there. And then probation. Now, I have a video down below, and I'll probably link it right here as well, about the 14 things you're going to be wanting to do on probation. Long story short, probation is usually your first. Every department has a little bit different of a timing. I've heard of 6 months is the shortest probation period I've ever heard of, and 2 years is the longest probation period I've ever heard of. When you are on probation, they have the right to fire you for any reason at any time. It's essentially a year-long tryout. Most places do a year-long probation. And you're called the rookie, you're called the probie, you're called the new guy, the new girl, whatever. You are going to be expected to kind of prove yourself to your crew and your department over the course of your probation. And then once you're done, you're a full-fledged member of the fire department. You're already a member when you're on probation, but watch the video on the 14 things you need to be doing on probation. And I go into a lot more depth on what to expect on probation. So I hope you guys found this video helpful. I hope you found this useful. If you did, give it a thumbs up and a like. Consider subscribing to the channel, and I will be posting a lot more content. And like I said, if there's any sort of questions you have, please leave them in the description below. I read and try to respond to every single comment. Check the description for any other videos, and I will see you guys in the next video.